So, Harrison Price for Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025, coming to you from the Nation Network studio, built by Arbor Lee here at the historic Wall Center. In this program, a presentation of Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today. Bet on a huge range of markets. So, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION when opening that account. Matt Harrison alongside Blake Price. Four-time Juno Award winner Mike Rogerson hitting switches, conducting things alongside Coach Nick Hauka. We got a big show planned for you.
And it's cold in the studio. That's why I'm wearing a jacket
The
today.
puffy jacket has returned.
Just too damn cold.
And I got to say, it is an enormous week here at Harrison Price because 13 years into this program, we have a new and potentially revolutionary development. You know, Blake from time to time would say things on the show, and I would say, oh, wonder how your missus feels about that.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I can assure you, nobody, and I mean nobody in my family ever listens to or watches the show. Not Mrs. Price, not his 4 children, not his parents, not his in-laws, no one.
It's true.
From the
I was
Price family
Yeah.
ever consume the show. We have 2 children who are now regulars.
Yeah. See, when we were on this archaic thing called radio, the kids weren't into it.
Mm-hmm.
Now they think it's kind of novel and hysterical that we're on Instagram Live, that we're on YouTube.
We are on their preferred platforms.
Yes. It's just
the
easy.
new generation.
It's just easy.
Shout out to both of them.
Yes.
It's been a pleasure watching you grow up. Thanks for finally getting here.
And my son said he felt like he was on blast the other day when I blamed him for us watching the rerun.
Right.
Yeah.
Feel free to get in the comments.
So now I can't denigrate the kids. They'll know.
Did you denigrate the kids before?
I didn't really, but now I feel like I'm being policed.
You are. That's why they're watching.
Yes, perhaps.
Surrey Mitsubishi poll question today. Would you support a team makeover around Quinn Hughes? You can vote yes, no at the Harrison Price X and YouTube channels. As always, everybody, and we made it clear in today's poll, define makeover how you see fit. So for you, if it's about moving JT Miller and Brock Besser, a UFA to B, fair enough. If it's about going deeper and going at both the centermen, Miller and Pettersson, fair enough. If it's about Demko and re-signing Lankinen and turning over the crease, define it as you see fit. Blake, what's your take here?
I don't think they're at that stage just yet. I think you owe it to yourself as an. I mean, hey, again, at the outset of the season, we said they need another top 4 defenseman. So, that's not a new revelation here. Add that, yes, add to cart. And then I think you owe it to yourself to do that and to consummate the JT Miller trade and then see where you're at. And again, we've talked about this addition by subtraction theory. At this point, it's just a theory because nothing guaranteed happens the minute you trade JT Miller out of the room. But I think you owe it to yourself to settle down, see how it all settles, and then go from there. But I understand why, the way they're playing right now, I get why people are extra mad and want to go the extra mile.
Yeah, and the intent of the question is not to fiddle around the edges.
Right.
Is to make trades with core players or players close to the core. I'm not there yet, although show me the return on the JT Miller trade and I might get there.
Yeah, if it's a very middling to low return.
Or if it's a futures-based return.
Yeah, that's what I mean,
and
yeah.
more on that as we go forward in the program. And, boy, the villagers are angry today because the early voting on this poll, not even sure it's early, nearly 1,100 votes in, we're rocking 84% yes.
Really?
Yeah. I'm a little surprised it was, I figured there'd be an emotional hot button there after that loss to Buffalo, but wow, didn't see it being of that order. Our friends at Surrey Mitsubishi have a special offer for the Sekeres and Price audience. If you've been turned down for financing at other dealerships, Surrey Mitsubishi is going to do its utmost to get you approved through their in-house financing program. In fact, they've assigned a dedicated representative, Jessica, to assist. Bad credit, negative equity on your current car. Jessica is going to apply this special program for you. Do everything possible to make sure you are approved. Email Jessica at surreymitsubishi.com. Make sure you mention Sekeres and Price to get in on this program. Jessica at surreymitsubishi.com. Some conditions apply. Surrey Mitsubishi, 13820 104th Avenue. Top story brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing, Neighborhood Brewing, Foolish Winery. Another blown lead, another home loss, a microcosm of the season, according to Rick Tocchet, and this time to the worst team in the Eastern Conference, playing its second of back-to-back and after a full morning practice. All the talk in the build-up to this game was, I realized they played in the afternoon Monday, Martin Luther King Day in the United States. But the Sabres show up here, and old school Lindy Ruff holds more than a morning skate, like a practice.
No twirl.
What are you doing? You're exhausting the players. They just played. Blah, blah, blah. Well, they erase the lead. They come back in the third period. They get a regulation victory.
And they kind of blow the doors off them in the third period. They get better as the fatigue should be hitting in. I actually had the thought anyway at the end of the second period, after the Canucks played a pretty good period.
Mm-hmm.
Had a couple of great shifts where they just hemmed them in at 5-on-5 and went to work. And I had the thought, really good. In my mind, okay, they're going to win this game. But in my mind, I'm like, okay, back-to-back, that's great. They finally did it. I thought, but it is the Sabres. I said,
yep, I was going down that road,
you
too.
do have to moderate the excitement just a little bit. It is just this. So even in a win, I was prepared to try to settle everybody down. Like, good, but let's be realistic about what was accomplished here. And then they not only don't win, but they get soundly outplayed in the third period. That was a game that, feels like a few weeks ago they would have salvaged the single point. That would have been one of those in the third column, as they were so wont to do back then. They can't even do that. At 6-on-5, they were pretty good, just couldn't score. But, Matt, it's the last place team in the East. A
team that has an extraordinary difficulty defending.
Yeah.
Some wise sage on X last night. Statement loss for the Canucks, and by that I mean the Canucks should put out a statement. Pretty good line.
Thank you.
Not bad.
Just came to me.
Don't often like your tweets, but I think I liked that one. Vancouver now 1 point behind Calgary for the final playoff spot, having played an extra game. So the Flames with a game in hand here. We're going to hear from Coach Tocchet. We're going to hear from Thatcher Demco. Let's start with Rick because, these post-game sessions are getting more and more, he's at a loss. Yep. Let's hear from Coach on this team at times just acts defeated.
Pockets of some good stuff, and like I said, there's pockets where we're just, I don't know if it's I don't want to say defeated, but like we're up 2-1. You should feel confident. You should want that puck. You should know off the face-off, this is where I got to go. Like for whatever reason, I don't know. There's a few guys that I don't know whether a few could be 4, 5, 6. Some nights where they just kind of stand around, and it's almost like it's too big for them sometimes. I don't know why. They just go play. that's the frustrating part. So some guys got to unlock whether it's a nervousness or where to go. I don't know.
Wow. Back to the drawing board. A lot of I don't knows. Guys who don't want the puck. Guys who are too nervous. Moments too big. I mean, that just sounds like a fragile, insecure, defeated club.
Yep.
Thatcher Demco with a insightful media session last night after the game. He said, and I quote, "I don't think I've been good enough this year. I've got to keep working to find that level I know I can get to." A couple of days ago, I asked you, when is it fair to sort of judge Thatcher Demco by his Vezina candidate status and baseline that we saw last year? Well, Thatcher's there now. 10 games in. Or is it 11 now? But Demko is now beyond the, I've 11 games in, 3-4-3, 873 save percentage, 323 goals against. But Thatcher himself now is beyond the, I'm still feeling things out about this injury. I'm sure it's still not 100% comfortable for him. But to listen to him last night is to listen to a guy who is not happy with his level. Let's hear from Thatcher Demko, who was asked if playing more, and he has been playing more, and the coach is committed to playing him more, and the GM says he wants to see him play more. He was asked, will playing more help?
Been good enough this year. Obviously, it's been a challenging year, dating back to the summer. So, obviously it's been a lot of soul searching for me over the last few months, and I don't know how else to put it. I just haven't been good enough so far. So, take it day by day, and I know I'm putting in the work, so, it'll come.
Does getting into that rhythm and playing more often help that?
Maybe, yeah. That's kind of been my role over the last several years, is kind of just carrying the workload. So, it's been an odd year in that sense. Just, I came back a few games before Christmas break and then missed 2 games. It just feels like a little bit of back and forth, but, that's irrelevant to me. I got to show up when my name's called, and I got to do a better job.
He says it's irrelevant, but he also said, hey, that's what I'm used to. Mm-hmm. That's what I've always done. Now, a little bit different because Lankinen is coming off an illness here as to whether or not he plays tomorrow. I would say under normal circumstances, Matt, that is time for Lankinen to come in. But if Lankinen's still feeling a little weak after being sick, and they did send Shilov's down, so he's going to back up at the very least. But if he doesn't feel like he can play 60 minutes of NHL hockey, I guess Demko playing a 4th in a row is possible here. Mm-hmm. And
how did you feel about him last night?
I don't know that it was a goalie kind of night, and wasn't terribly tested. But at the end of the night, there's 3 goals behind him from a team that doesn't score a lot.
Yeah, he said he needed to make a save in the 3rd.
Yeah.
Don't believe he specified which goal, but.
And that's the thing. It's like none of them are egregious, but he's supposed to be one of the best goalies in the world, and so those are generally stopped.
Yeah.
The non-egregious scoring opportunities.
Rick Tocchet, amongst the many things he said last night, and he went he pulled on this thread again, that the coaches are getting frustrated with passes back to the point and a refusal to attack the interior of the ice. He also talked about they have not had enough big moments this season, moments in the game that can change the game, change the flow, change the momentum, change the score. Though he talked about how 70% of the game is sort of played neutrally. It's in those 30%, those big moments. How do you respond? Do you execute? He was also asked about consistency and, of course, an utter lack of with the Vancouver Canucks this year, particularly on home ice where, they can go out and get terrific victories. We've seen the example again here this week. A 3-2 win over Edmonton on Saturday. It's an excellent win for the club against your division rival, against one of the best teams in the National Hockey League. Saw that last month, right? The 4-0 Florida win, the 3-1 Colorado win. Again, terrific wins against heavyweights, but sandwiched between an utter no-show 5-1 loss to Boston.
Leading nowhere.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Leading nowhere.
So he was asked about the consistency, Here's what he said. We're going to come back and discuss because, of the many things that are going wrong for the Vancouver Canucks, boy, it just sounds like it's very complicated right now. Here's Coach.
Well, consistency is a responsibility on an individual player. You come to the rink, you got to consistently do the hard things, do the right things. And then when everybody collectively does that, then the team becomes consistent. And I don't know, sometimes we're just lacking that. Some nights you might just have to do this to be consistent for us. And I think when we score a goal, we're up 2-1, and I think our next 3 shifts, we made some, blind plays. We're actually giving Buffalo a chance to go the other way, I think. So I think some guys have to know their role. You can't always try to score when it's not there. That's something that we've talked about, where we got to flip it. We got to flip that attitude, or it's we're going to be in trouble this season.
But you see what he's doing there. Like, I don't know if it's conscious or not, Matt. Mm-hmm. What he's telling them is, you're getting. To me, what I hear is you're getting cute out there. You get a couple of goals, you're getting cute out there, and you're giving them chances the other way. Mm-hmm. So he's upset about the defensive side of things. But then at the same time, he's also wondering why they only have 2 goals at the end of the game.
And this is what I'm getting at. The mixed messages and whether you can preach these 2 different things and not just overburden the players. Frank Corrado is terrific on this topic later in the program. You're going to want to hear that. But because there are... And he draws the comparison to Todd McClellan in Detroit, who basically, came in after Boxing Day, after they fired Lalonde, and just told them, just play bleeping hockey.
Pavel in the chat says, Tocchet newsflash, your system doesn't allow them to just go play. Yeah. And then Eagle Bay later saying the moment was too big playing the Sabres.
Yeah. We have a question here from Faraz, who says, would you hire Quenneville if he's done enough to come back and is contrite? My answer there is no. Joel's been out of the game a while now. I find it particularly difficult to get past what Joel did or didn't do with the Kyle Beach situation in Chicago. I'm also not very big on retread NHL head coaches. I would want to go out and find the next Spencer Carberry. I would want to go out and find the next young up-and-comer.
I just don't think the Canucks, based on the last few years, from Boudreau to here, need the headache of the backstory of Joel Quenneville either. I just don't think it's not that people shouldn't be forgiven and all that. No. I just think that's for somebody else to break the glass on.
There's levels of forgiveness, in terms of whether Joel has done the work and should be forgiven just on a human level, but then the reward of an NHL job, right?
Yeah.
There's only 32 of these, and look, he at one point was an excellent coach. If I'm going forward, particularly if I'm going forward in a world with Quinn Hughes and Elias Pettersson, not JT Miller, I think I want a coach who's a little bit more modern, young, suitable to those 2 players than Joel Quenneville.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that Joel would coach him the same way, but you're right. I think people are growing really tired of the dump and chase hockey. I think people are growing really tired of the shots from the point. That's why the goals last night were kind of exhilarated, the Pettersson goal in particular, because it generates that out of the corner.
That was an awesome shift, and especially coming off that incredibly dreary first period, to have a shift like that where Hughes and Pettersson are as active and as dangerous as they are, as smart play by forward to get to the bench, let Hughes get on the ice in that situation.
But this starts below there's a bunch of work below the dots. It does come back out to the point, but then gets back down low again.
The interior is attacked at that point.
I was listening to
But you can't rely on your opponent having a broken stick and being caught out there for 2 minutes to score goals, right? Like, those are not common situations in the NHL. When they present, attack, want to score there. Those are amongst those 30% big moments Tocchet was talking about. But you're not going to be able to dine out on that situation, that specific situation, game in, game out.
I somehow was listening to, well, I know why, because local sports radio airs a Toronto station for an hour, inexplicably. They were talking about screenshots. Clearside Analytics, Steve Alliquette was on the show talking about screenshots. And so I'm thinking about it through the prism of Canucks hockey and thinking, there's probably a lot of league leaders or competitively high screenshot leaders on this team because of how, and they're talking about how there's no Leafs, the Leafs in first place. There's no Leafs anywhere near because they only score off the rush almost. And I thought to myself, my God, I don't even know what that really looks like. Sherwood had a nice chance off the rush where he kept on that 2-on-1, but we just don't see enough of those chances. And I am so done watching, as they called it in this segment, the sifting through of shots looking to find a screen that works either for a goal directly or for a rebound and then a goal that way. Like, the Canucks don't score more than one way, it seems. And I think people are sick and tired of that. I think they're sick and tired of dump and chase zone entries.
No, see, I would disagree. They're sick and tired of losing and paying top dollar to watch.
No, that's fine.
Losses
if it
on
worked,
home
Matt,
ice.
if all that
if
works,
they were winning, I don't think anybody would complain.
Correct.
Or very few would complain about style points.
Correct. But you're not.
Correct.
So change it.
So apparently we're going to have this debate ongoing now. Okay, change it is easier said than done. Change it requires personnel changes. Changes requires moves made above Rick Tocchet's head to facilitate a change in philosophy, change in style.
You acknowledge that shift, that one shift that you talked about, how great it was when they kind of went back down to instinct there. That line has a 100-point guy on it, has a 40-goal guy on it, and a perennial 25-goal guy on it. That line should be doing that on a regular basis. Shift stands out like the smallest island in the Pacific. Like,
I will throw you a lifeline here and say, yes, of course, I would like to see, and they are capable of more offensive zone half-court shifts where they control the puck, cycle it, what have you. Mm-hmm. But again, there's a player with a broken stick, and a couple of guys are caught out there for a second minute. You're not going to get that opportunity very often.
Other teams do. With comparable personnel.
No, Blake.
Other teams don't have dominant shifts in the offensive zone?
They have. That dominant shift was a function of the opponent being lame in two different ways. One guy with no stick, a couple of guys out there for 2 minutes.
Right, and so what I think...
that's not going to present itself on a regular basis.
Right, but the reason why all of a sudden that dominance opened up was they realized that and they went, maybe we can break some rules here because these guys are lame. So I'm going to try something a little bit different here because I know...
No, that's not breaking rules. That's exactly what you're supposed to do when you recognize you've got some guys out there who can't move because they're so tired and one guy who can't properly defend because he doesn't have a stick.
Okay, the tired thing does happen, and you can take advantage of it. My point is, Matt, you've got to assert yourself offensively sometimes, even when the guys have all got their sticks, and even when there's a fresh line from the opposition out there.
Okay.
And these guys aren't allowed to do that under the system.
No.
It's designed to go back to the point. They've been above board on this, Matt.
They said the coaches are tired with the puck going back to the point. They want to attack the interior more.
They want that. They want that on the rebound. They are preaching to get point shots through traffic. That is the MO of this offensive setup, and then create from there.
The MO of the offensive setup was to hold the puck and get grade A scoring chances. What he has recognized and what he has tailored or tried to into the approach is That's not working because we're not getting enough shots on goal. That's not working because we don't have enough players, particularly defensemen, who are comfortable with the puck on their stick and can make the sort of passes and get the sort of puck movement to generate those grade A's. Not to mention they don't get anything off the rush because they have those style of defensemen and are not particularly fast. So what he's trying to do because of that is say, okay, let's just try and get the puck to the front of the net and get greasy goals so that we can get to a baseline of shots on goal and we can get the puck to a dangerous scoring area, even if it's not in the stylish, artistic, move the puck around, generate a great scoring chance via passing.
But they don't even possess the puck because they dump the puck and chase, and they can't get to the puck in time.
The system is designed
to
to regain possession off the forecheck,
and they don't do it.
And if you want to say that that's been lacking, then fair enough. But the shift in question is like a young gazelle with a broken leg on the Serengeti. Of course, the Lions are going to feast.
But my point is they are capable. I don't think they even attempt to go on the hunt a lot of times because of what they've been told to do under punishment of benching.
And if it's getting a little, punishment of benching.
Oh, we've seen Besser and Miller both stapled to the bench here late. Career lows in minutes almost. Like he's starting to lean on these players and say there's going to be consequences.
Fair enough. If your argument is there's a mixed message coming out here, or that the alterations that he's trying to make in the way they play is too confusing for the Canucks.
I'm saying this. He's trying defense first. I'm saying he's trying defense first. He tried to prepare them for the playoffs by saying defense first. Mm-hmm. I'm saying, how about you try to outscore the opposition? How about that?
And again, Blake, if you had defensemen who could move the puck, if you had defensemen who were comfortable pinching off the point and trying to make a play below the top of the circle, off the hash marks near the goal line, fair enough. But you don't have those. You don't have that profile of defenseman when anyone other than Hughes and maybe Roenick is not on the ice. So you have to tailor your system to your personnel.
You got Eric Brandstrom.
If you've got a lousy,
Friedman.
If you've got Brandstrom and Friedman,
yeah.
Are you kidding me?
I would rather.
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm not kidding you.
Okay, now we're taking a turn for the absurd. You think Mark Friedman is going to pinch off the point and start threading passes
more
for
so
high
than,
dangers?
More so than Vincent Desharnais, yes. That is his profile, yes. That's what he does.
Holy shit, okay.
Yes.
We're going to agree to disagree then.
But that's the kind of defenseman he is. He's not a thumping tree like the rest of them.
Well, he's an AHL player.
Yes.
Who is being asked to gobble up a few neutral minutes. In no world is Mark Friedman sitting there thinking, puck comes to me on the point, I'm going to stick handle around the winger.
No, but
generate some space at the top of the circles and then thread a cross-ice pass through people for a tap-in goal.
Like, not suggesting that. I'm suggesting a first pass.
Out of the defensive zone?
Yes.
Okay.
That the other guys seem incapable of doing. And then the other three guys are fully capable of doing what you just talked about. Roenick, Hughes, and Brandstrom.
Well, Brandstrom's not even here.
Right. And that's a conscious decision on their part. We'd rather just try to build a wall than try to outscore the other team.
Yes. I think
and it's not working. We've got proof of concept now.
And I think their point is whatever Brandstrom gives us on the part of the game that you're talking about, he is not enough compared to what he doesn't provide on the defensive side.
Oh, I know that's what they think, and I think they're wrong.
Okay.
As the first 2 months of the season show.
Yeah, so I don't necessarily disagree that a Brandstrom profile of player would be better on the third pair, left side. As you know, I supported playing Brandstrom throughout. But I think he's got to be a little better than Eric Brandstrom.
Well, again, we saw two different Eric Bransoms, the October,
Yes.
November, and the December.
Correct.
But the point is, he's capable. We've seen it. So, yeah, you want to try to coach him out of the December version, but the October, November version is pretty fine. So I just think they gave up on him too soon. I think there could have been more coaching done.
And so you'd play Friedman over Desharnais.
Yep. Right now, yeah.
Would you play Friedman over Juleson if he was healthy?
Right now, yes, because I think Juleson needs some coaching too. I think there's been a serious plateau / downward turn on his game. This is what happens with the AHL players. They can keep their head above water for a bit,
Yeah.
but they ultimately lose their traction, right?
But Friedman's an AHL player too.
Yes.
Okay, so you just think he can keep his head above water in the immediate term?
In the
here.
immediate
Okay.
term, and then
Okay.
continue the rotation, if you will. No,
All right.
I'm not. There's no panacea here. I'm just trying to,
Right.
you got to change something here, Matt. You can't just be banging your head against the wall.
No, but I think he has tried to change something, and I don't
Which
think
part?
the players have adapted well. Again, previously they were hold on to the puck, move it around. Let's see, as a defensive tactic, right? We're going to keep possession in the offensive zone as much because we like what that does for us from a defensive point of view, and try and generate grade A scoring chances, and thus we need fewer shots and scoring chances to generate goals. I think what he has tried to alter a little bit is we're just not getting enough shots or grade A scoring chances, particularly since we don't do anything off the rush. So let's try and make it a little simpler and just throw the puck towards the goal and see if we can get some of those ugly, greasy, high slot, low slot goals. And
Almost exclusively, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not working either.
Okay. I want you to know that I'm going to support you through this process.
You're going to release a statement?
We're going to get to a statement after
Now
you
I get
tell
it. It
us
does make me feel better.
about Yellow Dog and Neighbor. I thought we were about to have a knockdown drag 'em out there, everybody. I thought we were going down Winter Tires Road there.
No, but it is all the same stuff that we used to fight about it with regards to the shitty Canucks. And it's like,
Which was such wasted energy when you think
Yeah,
back,
so,
right?
yeah.
Like, who gives a damn? They were terrible.
well, it would have been the difference
Who
between
cares about analyzing? They're just too bad.
it would have been the difference between a 74-point team
Yeah,
and
exactly.
an 81-point team.
Great. Let's
Yeah.
do it your way.
Yeah.
We're up to 81 points, and the draft pick gets even fucking worse.
But it's all about the same. There are no quick fixes here because the team isn't good enough. You're just trying to find a way to get back-to-back freaking wins like that.
Just back-to-back
Like
wins.
the limbo ball is
Oh, my
on
God.
the floor.
And on home ice, where it should be easy
You know
or
what'll make
easier.
get a Yellow Dog Box of Tricks mix pack. It'll make you feel better because there's a bunch of fabulous mixed tastes in there. You got the High Five Hazy IPA, 2 brand new brews in the Wander Tropical IPA and the Liquid Neon Juicy Pale Ale, and then the limited release Ultra Color Amber IPA they've taken out of the Yellow Dog vault. Good. And consistency. 4 lines. You see that? 4 lines coming up over the boards there from Yellow Dog. And they're all winners.
8 home wins, 8, 10, and 6. Fewest in the National Hockey League.
24 times
Tied
the
with-
season ticket holder has gone through the wicket. 24 times, folks.
We were chatting
8
with
times victorious.
San Jose, Utah, the only other teams with so few victories on home ice.
Walking blind in the chat. This is the shitty Canucks.
Yeah, I know. Fair.
Still.
Fair. And the worst part, Utah and San Jose have played one fewer game at home. So the Vancouver Canucks, when Utah and San Jose make up those home games, could be categorically the worst home team with the fewest home wins in the National Hockey League. 109-point team last year. Won the Pacific Division, made it to the second round, Game 7. We were talking with a friend earlier today who is a season ticket holder and really enjoys it because his kid is of the age now. He's showing a big interest in hockey. But no, my sympathy goes out to people who bought season tickets this year, particularly the new season ticket subscriber who got caught up in the rush of last year, that extraordinary feel and atmosphere and electricity around the building in the playoffs, around the city. It's like, yeah, I'm getting on board. Wow. a lot of money to see some really terrible hockey this year. Okay, moving along. It's time to poke fun at someone else because, we just did the postmortem and it was ugly.
Mm-hmm.
The Edmonton Oilers released a statement on Connor McDavid's suspension. You have got to be kidding me. You and I both know the Oilers director of hockey communication really well. Jamie Cartmell, who was the longtime PR chief for the BC Lions, and a sharp, smart, professional guy. I can only imagine the reaction from Jamie when this came across his desk yesterday. Yeah, we're going to release this statement. Oh, what's the statement going to say? Well, and here it is. The Oilers organization is disappointed, and we share in our fans' frustration over the 3-game suspension of our captain, Connor McDavid. We support him through this process, and the organization and our fans look forward to having him back in the lineup versus Seattle next week. What do you think they mean by we're going to support him through this process? Like home game day tomorrow for the Oilers against the Canucks. What's Connor going to do? Take the dog for a walk?
Yeah.
Catch up on some Netflix? I'm just glad the Oilers organization will be there to support him during the dog walking and the Netflix
Do you know
watching.
that, like, for a guy that doesn't get the quote-unquote all-star break off because he'll be playing in the Four Nations, he is probably pleased as punch about this.
No, I don't think so. I think his competitor wants to play it, particularly against the Canucks tomorrow.
No.
And particularly against Ovi.
I mean,
I think he's wise enough to know there's some ancillary benefits here.
Yes,
We'll rest.
yes.
Yep, that's good.
he sees a silver lining, I guarantee you.
If he had appealed the suspension, I would understand support through the process.
Right. There's no process.
Of course. That's what you do with any of your players.
Well, and also, if you were that upset about it, wouldn't you appeal?
It is a lever available to you. The other thing, again, which it makes this so nonsensical, you knew the second the hearing was happening, he's going to get suspended for a game. It was not too far a leap to go, okay, he's going to miss one game. Gosh, they may hit him with 2. Mm-hmm. You had to be preparing yourself that this would be a game or a 2-game suspension. Now, Blake and I admitted yesterday we were quite surprised it was 3. Mm-hmm. Frankly, I didn't necessarily think it rose to the level of 3. But the difference between 2 and 3, when you are sitting on 61 points in 47 games, 1 point off the division lead, you know, it's not a lot of pain there.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can't be upset that he's suspended, period.
No.
Because, stick to the face.
Check somebody in the face. You can be mad as hell that a Connor Garland holding penalty wasn't called. You can pick up the phone and scream bloody murder to the Department of Officiating at the National Hockey League
You
head
can even be
office.
upset that Tyler Myers got the same suspension.
All of that.
You can be, but it still doesn't mean that the process for Connor McDavid is any different.
See, this is what you get when your star player's agent, Jeff Jackson, is now running the organization. Memo to Jeff, you're no longer Connor's paid advocate. You're his employer.
So how much does the fact that they can start to negotiate a contract extension for Connor McDavid in the summer have to do with this?
I don't know.
Is this, Connor, we love you, man. We love you. We love you so much.
Don't tell me Connor McDavid is so fragile as though he needed this.
Also,
He needed to see it in print and tell the world that they'll support him through some inactivity over the next week, aka the process.
And I mean, what would mean more? And let's actually answer that. What would mean more to Connor McDavid, the human being? His coach and all of his teammates who've already done this, commenting, he means the world's best player on the planet. Don't think that should have happened. Blah blah blah. So hearing all that, all the video clips on social, where people get their news, or what would that be? 111 words tops 58 words tops written on letterhead. Well, I wasn't feeling supported by my team, but now that it's on letterhead, man, now the love is real.
Oh, wow. All the feels. Got me right in the ticker.
Like, all your buddies have already gone to bat for you.
Come
You
on.
heard it. You
Yes,
saw
exactly.
it on TikTok.
Draisaitl took his run at it all.
Yes. But the letterhead,
Yeah.
that did it.
And meanwhile, on the other side of the equation, and we've talked about this with Tocchet before, pure class and really smart communication. Hey, I've got a problem with people going after Wes McCauley. He's one of the best officials in the league. They have a tough job. There's a lot that goes on out there that is uncalled, certain things that are called. We have said it time and again. Tocchet is not going to take the bait here. He stands apart from most of his NHL brethren on benches and even in GM's offices. And I love the sort of culture he is creating in that regard with the Vancouver Canucks. Because, Blake, you and I covered whiny, complainy, bitchy Vancouver Canucks teams that I thought were well managed, well coached, played the game honestly, and had their measure of success, albeit short of a Stanley Cup. And I do not think it helped their cause, particularly in the Stanley Cup final in 2011.
Yeah.
Pierre LeBrun says a JT Miller trade is a matter of when, not if. Carolina, the Rangers, New Jersey, and he reports that the Canucks have relented a little on making a futures deal, especially with Carolina and New Jersey, because those are win-now teams that don't really want to trade from their cores.
Relented on futures deal. I mean, they've
Meaning
relented
they
it.
are
They would
willing
accept
to.
it.
They have crossed the psychological line of, okay, part of the return for JT Miller may have to be futures, be it picks or prospects, or young players
Or
who have
young
not
players
yet
on the roster,
matured
yeah.
into stalwart NHLers.
Yeah, I think the Heatles of the world would fall into that category.
Yeah.
God,
Saravelli says the deal with the Rangers broke down because New York wanted Vancouver to retain on the contract. As we have long, you cannot, if it's a couple $100,000, but no, you are not retaining on this contract with 5 years left.
No.
You only have 3 retention spots to begin with. You are not going to pay this player not to play for you over a half decade. There are ways to make the dollars fit here cap-wise with the Rangers, and I think if you're Rutherford and Alvin, you hold firm on that. I have zero problem with the Canucks saying no to that, particularly given the return of Hedl, Lindgren, a first and maybe a prospect. Now, if they want to talk about Braden Schneider, if they want to talk about Vincent Trocheck, if they even want to talk about Keandre Miller, then I might be open.
Yeah.
But you're not holding a big whack of money on this contract for all these years that are left. That could be and when we talk futures, that could be interesting from a Dallas Stars perspective. And there's reporting out there that JT Miller would accept a trade to the Dallas Stars. Of course, it's Texas, so you get the benefit of no state income tax. Dallas is similarly in a boat with Carolina and New Jersey. They're trying to win now. Don't for a second think that you can land Wyatt Johnson or Logan Stankoven in a JT Miller trade. Maverick Bourque is an interesting name there. He is a center iceman by trade. He's 23, so
older young player.
Yeah, 30th overall pick in 2020. So you'd have to really believe in him.
Because he hasn't done anything at the NHL level right now that proves he's got 12 points this year.
Correct. You would need more than Bourque, and I certainly wouldn't want to take Bourque as the prime asset back there, but something in conjunction with Bourque, maybe.
You're not getting Stankoven.
I don't see a ton of great fits there, but there's at least possibilities.
You're not getting Stankoven. Do you think they could upgrade to Wyatt Johnson?
I don't for a second think you're going to go Wyatt Johnston. No. Well, first of all, he's playing at $900,000 as an RFA without arb rights. So he is big time cost effective.
Yeah.
He's a big right shot centerman who has had terrific success in his NHL career to date. He scored 30 goals last year.
Yeah, he did. He's having
a difficult year.
Yeah.
But he was 41 and he was a half point a game as a rookie. He's played every single game in his NHL career.
Yeah, he
was
exploded.
incredible in that playoff run for them last year. He had 10 goals in 19 games. No, I think they laugh you off the phone if you ask for Wyatt Johnston. The more I think of it, and I've heard the Kotkaniemi Roslovic, and boy, I just don't think there's a lot of upside there. I know that Roslovic's having a good year this year, but like he was tracking towards a fourth line guy not long ago that can play in the NHL, sure, but
no.
And Kotkaniemi, I just don't see it. The offensive upside there. He is a center. But I'm not sure he's ever going to be more than a third line center, which means you still have that hole at 1C.
I'd be curious about Kotkaniemi as the second piece to take the contract off their hands if they want to get out from underneath that contract.
But the other thing with Carolina is they so very rarely are going to make a deal where that isn't sort of predatory. Like last year when it was Gensel, they got Gensel last year, right, at the deadline? Am I imagining that? But they don't tend to make a lot of deals for rentals because they just don't believe in giving up prime assets for rentals. Gensel was a bit of a departure there. And as Cam Robinson said to us yesterday, that's an organization that hunts value. That's an analytically driven organization where the owner and the head coach are also involved in player acquisitions and movement. That is all about, do we get value the second the trade is registered? If we do, then that's a move we're interested in making. If not, we're just going to sit there and be a predator and search for the next situation where we can lean on a club in poor leverage. Honestly, Blake, the more I think of it, if you can do a deal with New Jersey for Mercer and Nemec, and I know Mercer's not a center or he's not purely a center, I wonder if that's the best.
That sounds like the best deal to me.
Yeah. So
you look at the rosters of
and again,
New York,
that might
Dallas,
be too
and
much
Carolina.
for New Jersey. New Jersey may look at that and go, no, that's too much. That's the second overall right shot defenseman and a good young middle six winger. We can't do that. You're going to have to add something. I might be willing, depending on who the player is.
And if the Rangers are not willing to talk on Miller or Schneider, then it's probably dead there too. Like I just don't see any other pieces there as well.
Yeah. All right, let's get to today's menu. It is brought to you by Greta, where tomorrow we have the big party, the Canucks Army viewing party presented by Fountain Tire as Vancouver takes on Edmonton. Exciting giveaways, can tell you. We got tickets to the March 5th game against Anaheim. There's signed memorabilia. There are jerseys to be won. Doors at 5, puck drop at 6. And we're going to raise some money for One Broken Bike, our charitable partner for the evening. A VIP 4-person reservation gets you access to the event, a Greta burger, and they're delicious, a beverage, plus a game card to play at the arcade, which encircles the bar there. Tickets at nationgear.ca. See you tomorrow. Laurence Gilman is coming up, where we go through, look, you've sat in managers' chairs, AGM's chairs, been a part of these sorts of discussions. What would you be doing right now? We also get him to tell us what it's like negotiating with the likes of Chris Drury in New York, the likes of Tom Fitzgerald in New Jersey, and the crew down in Carolina. Frank Corrado is going to join us. As I mentioned, Frank, from a player's perspective, brings us some insight about there comes a point where you just can't be affected by systems and noise and messaging and everything that seems to be rattling around Canucks players' brains right now. Just go out and play bleeping hockey. Time now for our Bet365 bets of the day. I had JT Miller as a goal scorer last night, so I'm a loser there. You had...
I had a 2-point night for Garland.
Yeah,
that happened.
Not so much. No. I'm looking at golf. One of my favorite venues on the PGA Tour. The Farmers Insurance Open at Torrey Pines in beautiful La Jolla, California. I had a chance to attend there a number of years ago. And I was looking at some of those golf betting accounts last night.
Yeah.
And because it's golf, a few small bets go a long way, right? West Coast Swing, he's already got a win in Hawaii. Hideki Matsuyama at plus 1,200. Jason Day has won at Torrey Pines before. He typically plays very well on the California-Arizona swing. He's at plus 2,500. And then Shane Lowry putts that style of green they have in California very well. You know, they use different grasses and grains there.
Yeah.
He's plus 4,000. So give me all three of those guys to win.
I'm going to keep betting against the LA Kings. Got the Pittsburgh Penguins to get a win over the Kings. And so I'm going to go the visiting Panthers on the money line this time. I'm getting plus 100 on the Panthers into LA to take on the Kings.
Open an account with Bet365 today. Bet on a huge range of markets. So whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION when opening that account. Laurence Gilman coming up next. Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center and Ben Moss, presenter of this next segment, proudly Canadian-owned, operated, a history dating back more than 100 years. They are committed to customer satisfaction. Check out the large selection, Canadian mined diamonds, lab-grown diamonds. They got diamonds with payment plans to suit your needs. 5 locations in British Columbia: Abbotsford, Victoria, Chilliwack, Willowbrook, and Langley, Coquitlam Center. For more info, check out benmoss.com. Ben Moss, shine bright as we connect with the former assistant general manager of the Vancouver Canucks, NHL executive with the Jets, Coyotes, Leafs as well, Mr. Laurence Gilman. How are you doing?
I'm well. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, fantastic. So we're asking on our poll question today whether Canucks fans would support a team makeover around Quinn Hughes. And we wanted to start there, Laurence. When do you know when your group doesn't have it and that you've got to perform major surgery?
That's a tough question to answer because I've never really experienced what the Canucks seem to be going through at this point in time. Obviously, if what I read and what I hear is true, there are sufficient other issues at play that are causing them to take a player that they committed an 8-year contract to last year, who was clearly part of their core, and they are now making ostensibly the decision to move on from that player. I've never experienced that. That's untreaded waters for me. I have worked for teams that have been hopeless, where you have you understand you have no chance of making it. That's clearly not the case here. I mean, many people, myself included, were handicapping the Canucks as not just a playoff team, but one of the upper echelon teams in the Western Conference prior to the start of the season. So this is a different deal with what they're going through right now. And I don't really know, how to answer that question, to be honest.
Good honesty. You don't see similarities with JT and Roberto then?
With JT and who?
Roberto?
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, clearly, in Roberto's case, there were those issues I am aware of, and I know what was going on behind the scenes, much of which will stay behind the scenes. But clearly, there are issues where they feel they need to move on from this player. And obviously, there's been, notwithstanding that there's not a lot being talked about, there clearly has been discussion, serious discussion between the team and the player and the team and the player's agent. And, you know, once you give a player a no movement clause, he becomes your partner. He's not an employee, he's a partner. And when it comes time to move on, he has, not only does he have significant say, he's really a partner to both teams in the transaction. Because unless he's pleased with both sides of the deal, he's not going anywhere. So it's a unique situation here for sure. And, you know, the messaging that I'm getting from this is that it's not a question of if they're going to trade the player, it's when. But when could be as late as this summer. You know, it could be, you know, Pierre LeBrun wrote yesterday in The Athletic, it could be now, it could be at the deadline, or it could be next summer. So it's, like I said, it's a different deal here for sure.
Yeah, and just before anybody draws it, we are not equating JT's presence in this Canucks room to Roberto's presence in that Canucks room. It's just there was a lot of activity with Roberto, a lot of, you know, when that shoe might drop, that trade
and
might
he's
drop.
a 30-something that has a lot of years left on his contract, so that part fits as well. It is certainly unique. Is his age or his reputation, do you think, the biggest stumbling? I mean, his stats speak for themselves. He's amongst the most productive forwards over the last 4 years in the entire league. We're talking top 10 in the entire league here. What's the major stuff? Like, why wouldn't teams be falling over themselves? Is it the reputation now? Is it the age?
Well, it could be a little bit of both. I mean, as I have, you know, he is a competitive player. And I must say, I don't know JT Miller at all, but I've been suitably impressed with the manner in which he's comported himself during this situation. He's been forthright. He's stood up in front of the media. He's answered questions honestly. He's never said he doesn't want to be there. He has, you know, basically said he's putting his boots on every game and going to, you know, strap his boots on and go and play. And judging by what I have witnessed with him, particularly last Saturday night, I mean, he's done just that. I think there are teams that, I think more than anything else, there are teams that would be, well, as I always like to say, there's two kinds of teams in the NHL. There are those that are trying to get pregnant, and then there are those that are trying to go back, those that are going back on the pill. And then there are teams like, you know, the Toronto Maple Leafs that are trying to conceive octuplets. And if you're a team that's trying to conceive octuplets, you don't care about the age and you don't care about the money. You're getting a player that's going to help you win and win now. And, you know, if you look at one of the suitors, which is New Jersey, you know, if you slot JT Miller into their lineup, you have, you know, Jack Hughes, Nico Hischier, and JT Miller down the middle. I mean, that's the makings of a Stanley Cup contending team for sure. Any team that's going to acquire JT Miller, though, isn't going to be a bottom feeding team. And I don't think he's going to go to a bottom feeding team anyway, because he has the power of his no movement clause. But it's going to be a team like the Rangers, like New Jersey, like Carolina, like Dallas, who are teams that are going for it. And, you know, you're a general manager of one of those teams. You know, you need to make hay when the sun shines, as the expression goes. And if your team is competitive and you could get a player like this who has shown, you know, stability in performance and is a competitor and will fire up your room, there's no reason why you wouldn't pull the trigger on him, irrespective of what his salary is and his age.
Canucks go almost 2 months now without winning back-to-back games. By the time that they have the opportunity to, it'll be almost 2 months. How much do the wins and losses that the Canucks are seemingly having trouble stringing together here, how much does that affect the appearance of desperation for the team as they try to sell off the player? Do you think that acquiring teams are quietly hoping for another skid and that the price goes down a little bit?
I mean, again, I've said this about Jim Rutherford. He's a Hall of Fame executive, you know, 3-time Stanley Cup winning general manager, a very mature, you know, executive. I don't think he's going to be wavered at all by whether they win 10 games in a row or whether they lose 10 games in a row.
The price is the price.
The price is the price. They don't have to do anything. You've got an asset, you know, you've got cost certainty on an asset, you know, a top 2 center iceman. No player is perfect, and neither is JT Miller. But, you know, I think like those issues may come at play if you're dealing with a younger general manager who may be in a situation, you know, where he or she is feeling pressure and is, you know, under duress. Like, for instance, in a place like Buffalo, where someone thinks you have to make a deal to save your job. Not that that's necessarily the case in Buffalo, but the perception sometimes is that a general manager has to make a deal. I don't think the Canucks have to do anything here. I think they've reached a point where they feel it's the right move for the long-term interests of the franchise, but they don't have to do anything quickly if they don't want to.
Well, except for, is there a case to be made that this room is waiting for a shoe to drop, Laurence?
Sure.
And that this group cannot perform to its potential until something happens.
It would be like adverse to actual logic if this situation wasn't spilling over into the other players on the team and the room. It is, and yes, there is similarity with respect to Roberto Luongo's situation in 2014 when we, eventually they are waiting. What is going to happen? When is it going to happen? Who's coming back? What does this mean? What is the owner? What's the statement being made to the team by ownership and management? And players are human beings, and everybody questions their circumstances in business and in life at various times. And there's no question that this situation has impacted the players on the Canucks roster.
What's it like negotiating with the New York Rangers and Chris Drury?
Well, I dealt with Chris Drury. I know Chris Drury reasonably well. I dealt with him when he was assistant general manager and general manager of the Hartford Wolfpack when I was, with the Leafs. Chris Drury is a very smart, very shrewd person, very measured in his thoughts. I would say ruthless, and I say that with a compliment in the manner in which he conducts business, and is very decisive. I think he knows what he wants. He knows what he doesn't want. And clearly, if you're looking as an observer at what appeared to happen between the Canucks and the Rangers last week, he got to a point where, and I don't know which side, caused the deal to fall apart, but I'm pretty certain that at some point along the way, Chris Drury, just like Rutherford and Alvin, had lines in the sand that they weren't prepared to cross. And I've seen it with Chris Drury and other deals, and listen. You don't get to one of those jobs without having acumen and being shrewd and being decisive. And Chris Drury is definitely all three of those.
Same question on Tom Fitzgerald in New Jersey.
Well, Tom Fitzgerald I know a little better, and I've known for longer than I know Chris Drury, and I'll tell you, I can't say enough about Tom Fitzgerald, the job that he's done with New Jersey and how he has remolded that team, particularly what he's done with their defense and adding some toughness up front. Tom is a very, very good person. He's actually a really funny guy who has, a lot of, he's worked along with Billy Guerin, who also has some similar qualities. But make no mistake, at the end of the day, Tom Fitzgerald is a guy who knows what he wants, and he goes out and gets it, like he did with Timo Meier with San Jose. So he's very decisive and knows what he wants to do and goes out and gets it. So if he's interested in JT Miller, I think he'll make a play.
And I know Carolina is a little bit different because Don Waddell's not there anymore. Eric Tulsky has elevated, and of course you have an owner there, the Maverick, Tom Dundon. What's it like dealing with Carolina?
Well, Carolina runs by committee, and that committee is the owner, Tom Dundon, general manager, Eric Tulsky, and the coach, Rod Brindamore. So you're not dealing with one person. You may be talking on the phone to one person, which I'm sure is Tulsky, but decisions there are made as a group. And it's a different methodology of operating to most teams, but clearly based on how well that team has done over the last 4 or 5 years, it's worked for them. They're a team, when they want to make deals, they find a way to make them, and they're decisive, and they've done a great job of drafting. They have really good assets. I can easily see them involved, being decisive and making a deal here in this case.
Sounds like a soccer team.
Yeah. LeBrun reported the Canucks may have relented and are a little more willing to accept futures on a Miller trade.
I was just going to go down there. Like how when you look at what's been rumored, there's no like for like here. Like any sort of like for like has been soundly turned down. Zibanejad, the closest thing that we've seen on the rumor mill. How do you think the Canucks feel about that, or should feel about that, about regressing in age a little bit, given we thought they were trying to push for a window in the current spell? Getting a Kotkaniemi, getting a Hedl, these sorts of players that you're hoping develop maybe into 60-point players sort of thing, but there's still not even any guarantee of that. Like, are you okay with that if you're Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvin, do you think, or is that last ditch?
Well, there's a different tier with respect to what assets you are getting back. You know, in a deal like this, there's young players, there's prospects, and there's draft picks. And I think if you're prioritizing in a deal like this, you're placing a premium on young players, you know, who you think are going to be top 6 forwards or top 4 defensemen, as the case may be. Following that, it's prospects, and then after that, you know, as we said, draft picks are income; they're not income. So obviously, I think in a perfect world, if they're not getting back, you know, you're trading a number 2 center who could be a number 1 center, depending upon where he goes and plays and the surrounding players. Ideally, you would like to get back an equal asset, but if you're not getting that because that team is trying to make a run for the playoffs, the next thing you want are good young players who you think are undervalued in their current organizations and can come in and fill a similar role that the outgoing player is going to play. And it also, you know, there's also the impact that it has on the rest of the players on the roster. Like if you're trading the guy for a bunch of prospects and draft picks, that sends the message to the coaches and the players that you're done for the year and you may as well raise the white flag. So ideally, you want to get back some, you know, you should be prioritizing on assets that are going to at least one or more assets that are going to be plugged into your roster and play at least a sufficient role.
What about if it's multiple pieces? Like obviously Kotkaniemi is not going to be JT Miller, I wouldn't think. He's nowhere close to that right now. But what if you got Kotkaniemi and Jalen Chatfield, just to throw 2 names at you? Again, Chatfield, not necessarily a Norris Trophy candidate, nor will he ever be, but he certainly would help the Canucks blue line. So you're not getting the spectacular play of a JT Miller, but you're plugging 2 kind of holes that needed to be plugged nevertheless. Does that give you the same signal, even though you know as another player in that room, nobody's here as good as JT Miller?
Well, as I said to you, you know, we talked about this in one of my last sessions with you guys. He who gives up, you know, he who gets the best player wins the trade. And, you know, like Kotkaniemi and Chatfield for Miller doesn't really turn my crank. You know, on from the Canucks side of the equation. And I, you know, would be holding out for better than that. And they have time on their side. They have a good player. And, you know, sometimes things have a way of working themselves out. And sometimes the best deals you do are the deals you don't do. And it's like, in my mind, no deal is better than a bad deal if you're, you know, running the Vancouver Canucks.
Are there enough teams in this right now that you think that deal, a good deal, is going to come their way?
Possibly. I mean, if what I'm reading is true and you've got 3 suitors and they seem to be, or 4, if you include Dallas, places where the player is willing to go, because as I said, I mean, he's a partner, he's an equal partner in the deal with both general managers. You know, that's when you can win one of these trades, because you can essentially get an auction going. You know, you can frame one deal with a general manager and then get on the phone to the next one and say, listen, I've got something from another team that involves, you know, a roster player, 2 roster players, and a grade A prospect or number 1 draft pick. If you want that, like that's the market at this point in time. And you force that general manager to either, you know, beat or match or beat that deal. But you have to be honest with people about what you have, and you can't, you know, if you're a liar once, you're a liar forever. So, you know, you've got to be forthright and candid. And again, a team can offer you something that you think is good. You could take that and shop it to another GM, and you still might not make the deal at the end of the day, because what the first general manager offers you, when you sit and analyze it objectively, it just may not be enough. So I really think that the Canucks, I mean, as much as this has to be having an impact in their room with their coaching staff at some point in the organization, they really don't have to do anything. Like if the deal isn't to their liking, they can wait for better times because they've got a great player who's under contract, and he's clearly holding up his end of the bargain at this point in time.
Last question, Laurence, and diversion from what we have been covering. When you and Mike took over the Canucks in the spring of 2008, there was the famous Gatineau Summit at the home of Alain Vigneault, where Mike went there and basically said, okay, you're a defensively oriented coach. I believe that we have to play up-tempo, more offensive hockey. We're in the entertainment business. The market is accustomed to that coming off the West Coast Express era. There is a lot of grumbling these days from Canucks fans about Rick Tocchet's style of hockey. Now, there wasn't a ton of grumbling last year, but of course they were winning a lot of games and winning a lot of games on home ice. It's a poor home record this year, and people are watching hockey that isn't quite of the entertainment quality value of last year or even previous years. How important do you now? Of course, we're coming off a decade of despair here, where there was not a lot of winning, so people were gobbling up the winning last year, regardless of how it looked like. How important is it, do you think, to play a entertaining brand of hockey in a Canadian market, or this market in particular?
Well, I think I have said this to you gentlemen in the past, but I ascribe to the theory that if you think like a fan, you'll soon be sitting among them. Rick Tocchet is a very, very good coach who has won Stanley Cups in good organizations. And, it is not reasonable to think that the situations that he has dealt with this year, not just whatever dressing room discord or locker room discord has occurred, but injuries to various players on the roster, significant players, as we talked about, Quinn Hughes, Thatcher Demco, Philip Hronek, Brock Besser at times. Like, they have dealt with a lot of adversity this year. And I think people need to take a deep breath and then exhale. And I don't believe that Rick Tocchet's style of coaching doesn't match the roster that he has, particularly because I believe their defense is not good enough.
Yeah.
I mean, and when you have a substandard defense, you have to coach differently. You have to batten down the hatches. You have to have your forwards play strong defensively. And that takes away from the, run and shoot aspect of your game that fans and people watching games on TV seem to like.
Fair enough.
He's a lozenge away from saying, "Give me better players that play more offense." Hey?
Yeah. Well, they all say that, Blake. I mean, every coach is the same in that regard. Give me better players and I'll be a better coach. But that's not reality in this business.
Incidentally, have you noticed the modification to his longtime phrase? There are two types of teams in the NHL: ones that are trying to get pregnant, ones that are trying to have a baby. Octuplets.
Going back on the pill. No, it's either.
I'm back on the pill too.
Yeah.
Like
New
verbiage.
New verbiage.
Yeah.
And then there's teams that are, like I said, doing in vitro fertilization, trying to conceive octuplets.
You were nothing if not a word.
That doesn't fit on the bumper sticker as well. All of that, but we'll work on it.
Think bumper sticker. Great stuff, Laurence. Thank you for the time. Until next Wednesday.
Okay, guys, have a good week. We'll see you next week.
If you are struggling with things like managing stress, anxiety, relationships, or divorce, reach out to the counselors at Advanced Counseling. Book your free initial consultation today at advancedcounseling.ca.
So Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center. We welcome in former Vancouver Canuck TSN hockey analyst, Mr. Frank Corrado.
Boys,
I hope you didn't stay up late to watch that one last night. Oh, God, that was a tough watch.
I watched some of it, didn't watch all of it. What a
Did it put you to sleep? Were you dozing after the first period?
Well, I battled through the first, watched the second, and I was like, I feel like their game's in a good place. And like, I have a travel day today. Like, I feel confident. I feel confident about what I saw in the second period. Yeah. I think I'm okay to go to bed. And I'm sure people will chirp me for that. East Coast guy doesn't stay up, watch games, whatever. I'll take the
No.
You had
criticism.
travel.
No.
You're exonerated.
Frank
It's all good.
stays up to watch all the West Coast games. Usually, it's just the product has to keep him awake.
So what you missed was the team playing back-to-backs that had a full practice, not a morning
Yeah.
skate. That team had the better third.
I know. I was
Explain.
going to say. I was going to say I'm going to put out a statement. Just going to put out a statement on the bad third period or in the bad first period as well.
Do you pledge to support the Vancouver Canucks through the process?
It's a tough process.
I mean, I can't pledge my support. I can analyze with a critical eye.
Yeah.
My goodness. Oh boy. Okay, so that was as ugly and dull of a first period as you can imagine, and you guys saw it. And you know what? You've seen way too many of those this year compared to last year, where the Canucks were such an exciting team. Not the case. But then for them, the crazy thing is for them to bounce back in the second and play the period that they did, where they're constantly coming at Buffalo in waves and keeping the puck in the offensive zone. And it just felt like, okay, that's the kind of energy on your toes type of play that they need to play with. And then just it falls off in the third period. I was surprised to see that. Like usually if you find it, you don't lose it that quickly. Like we don't see that kind of up and down within the game, but that's the story of this team this year. It's been a crazy ride.
So the sense we're getting, especially with all the trade activity around JT Miller and the near deal on Saturday with the Rangers, that this is a team that is kind of waiting for a shoe to drop. Have you ever been a part of something like that, a room like that, where you just know something and something substantial is about to happen and you've got to, because Tocchet's been preaching, come to the rink, worry about your job, worry about how to help the Vancouver Canucks win. But he has acknowledged it seems like distraction has crept into the room.
Isn't that's the message everyone is saying right now with Vancouver? Tocchet has said it. Even Demko after the game, like he looks pretty defeated, but he said, he goes, just got to worry about what I got to do. Everyone else has to worry about what they got to do. Like it's interesting with all this stuff going on in the dressing room that's the message that continually gets shoved out there. Like everyone just worry about your own stuff. So it would lead me to believe, having been in a few dressing rooms, there's been a few instances where maybe people are talking about other people's games when maybe their own backyard is not as spick and span as it should be. That's maybe just me reading into things. As far as being on a team waiting for the shoe to drop, I was, but in a different situation. Like I was on a bad team in Toronto that was waiting for the big sell-off to happen. Like we all knew it was coming. It was just a matter of when and who and, how that was going to look. And like ultimately it's different because we weren't battling for a playoff spot. Everything's a little more delicate now with this group because of, what the season, what has transpired over the season. And the fact that, these are valuable points, valuable games, and they're squandering a lot of these opportunities. So like, it's different than what I went through, but even in my situation, like still kind of thought about it, still kind of knew it was on the radar. And with all the noise, like, I don't care if you're not on social media or you've deleted this and deleted that, you've blocked whoever, everyone has seen this kind of stuff. It's way too out there and it has to be weighing on the group.
Nikita Zadorov calling the 6 months he had in Vancouver the coolest 6 months of my career. That's the same room. I mean, the brick and mortar at the very least.
In fairness, a lot of that, I believe, was about the playoff atmosphere in and around the city and Rogers Arena.
Yeah, I think all of it. It's just impossible to think that. Looking at this team right now, looking at this city right now, the switch, the bad switch, has been flipped here, and we're in the netherworld all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's wild. And you know what? Even so, if you think about I was thinking about this morning, like the trade offers from potential teams that could be trying to get JT Miller. So what was the one from the Rangers? It was like Hedl and Lindgren, and there was picks involved, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately, picks will be involved. But if you're looking at this from Rutherford and Alvin's point of view, you still need players that are coming back that are going to keep you relevant and a good team. Mm-hmm. So if it's the Rangers or the Stars and Carolina, like those are some of the teams. Am I missing one? Like those are the teams that we're kind of hearing. Maybe the Bruins, but for me, the Bruins don't have the currency to make this kind of deal.
Maybe the Devils.
Jersey,
Yeah.
Frank would be
Maybe
good.
Jersey. That's another one. If you're kind of okay, so I was looking at this morning. If it's Hedl and Lindgren for the Rangers, that's your like package you're basing things around. If it's Carolina, who is it? Kotkaniemi. Like, can you try and pry? I mean, I would love to see Jalen Chatfield back. Hey, it's funny how time changes.
Wow,
Right?
Wow, what a statement!
And then if it's Dallas, it's like, is it like Maverick Bork and Nils Lundqvist? You know what I mean? Like that doesn't really move the needle for Vancouver. Like, are you convinced that Kotkaniemi is going to be your second line center? And then you have to realize you're going down the middle of the ice. Pettersson, who has his, temperament the way it is, and Kotkaniemi, like you lose a lot of edge that way.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
There's no ideal situation here when it comes to making this trade.
No, so let's go through some of the names that have been rumored. We'll start with Carolina there. Kotkaniemi and Jack Roslovic apparently are two players that the Vancouver Canucks have eyed in the past. Tell us about those two guys.
I mean, Kotkaniemi's like been this guy in waiting for so long. It feels like I've had conversations where it's like this feels like the year for Kotkaniemi, and it never has really launched the way it was supposed to. And I think if you go back, like he got thrust into the NHL a little too early, and I think that maybe has stunted his upside. But he's not big or robust or physically, like overpowering. So that would worry me about Kotkaniemi. And Carolina would be getting a massive upgrade, if that's the centerman they're swapping out and bringing in JT Miller. Like, think about what they would do. Aho, Miller, and Jordan Staal down the middle of the ice. My goodness, like have fun with that. And Roslovic is very skilled, has been a good scorer this year, but has, lacked that consistency. Like all the tools have been there for him, but it's never really taken off to the level that it maybe could have or should have. Now he's having a nice year this year, which is notable for sure, but you kind of think, okay, which Roslovic am I getting?
It would also have to be a lot more because he's a rental. He's a UFA. So
I think the idea is they'd re-sign him.
Exactly. And the Rangers deal. The Rangers deal is interesting because Hedl, out of all those forwards I mentioned, I think Hedel's the best one. It's just he's got the red flags with the concussions. And what is Ryan Lindgren going to do for the Canucks back end that they don't already have? They have, like that would be redundant. They need players that can move the puck on the back end.
Right. Talk to me about Dawson Mercer in New Jersey, who apparently the Canucks have eyed in the past, and whatever you know about Nemec. I understand he hasn't played a ton in the NHL.
Yeah, Nemec is an interesting one because he's drafted so high, and like that's a high upside guy that I think that's the guy that makes the most sense given the circumstances of what they have and what they need. And Dawson Mercer's a good player. Like he's, he kind of buzzes up and down the ice. He's very willing to get the puck into the middle of the ice, like not afraid to play in those higher traffic areas, quick hands, good wheels. Like I like Dawson Mercer. I think he's a good player. But the Nemec thing, like if you could try and pry him out, it would be hopefully similar to what Minnesota has done in getting Jiricek. And he's playing great right now. Like they're really happy with how he's playing, and he's playing on another guy that they pried out of Winnipeg on waivers, Chisholm. But that's the kind of if you're taking a swing at this thing, I would want that's type of guy. End. That's the guy that you need coming back. And like I think ultimately you can. I'm not going to say that you can get by with whatever forward you're going to get back. You'd like to have a nice piece, but like. The biggest area that they would need to have some kind of long-term future with is if they could bring in a guy like Nemec.
A big reason why people are thinking about this sort of makeover, whether it's via just the Miller trade or it goes even deeper than that, is the quality of the hockey that they are watching. Which is more true? Rick Tocchet is playing this style of hockey because that's all that he can do, or this is Rick Tocchet style of hockey, and this is just what it looks like.
Yeah, I don't necessarily buy that it's just this is Tocchet hockey and he's not capable of anything more. Like, did we not watch very exciting games last year? Pretty sure
In the
we
first
did.
half. In the first half.
Yeah, in the first half, for sure. I have a hard time believing that in today's NHL, a coach who's as smart and with it as Tocchet is just saying, I do this and I don't do anything else. And like, it's just, this is how we're going to do things. It's almost like it's more nuanced and complex than that, where it's like he has his style for sure, which has a lot of shades of what we're talking about, where he wants it to be lower event, and maybe that's a little more lower event offensively, but you'll take the trade-off defensively because that's what, quote unquote, wins in the playoffs. I get that, all that kind of stuff. But there's obviously like the player element to things as well, where, you know, recently in Detroit, I know they've lost 3 in a row now, Todd McClellan blasted his team and said, just play effing hockey. Like, I think that message is something that doesn't get translated into how the Canucks are playing hockey. It's like, okay, yeah, your coach wants you to do certain things, but they're also, you can't be robotic about things and so mechanical. You also have to have an element of, we all grew up playing hockey, playing shinny, playing on the pond, playing on the outdoor rink, whatever, where there was a little, you know, variance to how you were playing. It feels like the group, the players of the group have almost lost that, and I don't think it all should fall on the coach. Ultimately, like, if you're a player and you make plays and they work, the coach is not coming down the bench and telling you, hey, that was really smart, really like heady play, but don't do that again because that was different than what I'm preaching. Like, if you do it, it works. Like, it's just, I don't know. I think the worst of both has kind of happened this year. And it feels like a lot of it is like, well, that's what Tocchet's preaching. To a certain degree it is, but also to a certain degree, you just got to play bleeping hockey sometimes as a player.
And I wonder how many guys they have that can freelance and actually pull off and execute what they're trying to do. Like, you know, it just doesn't seem like we're seeing midi skill. Like, last night stood out in the second period for Elias Pettersson because that looked like Elias Pettersson again. Shaking and baking out of the corner and blind passes onto the tape of his teammates, and the shot was spectacular. So he's capable of it. We know Quinn Hughes is capable of it, but you know, how many others are capable of making something out of nothing and actually feeling like they have the license to do so? I think that what you talked about is absolutely true, that I think there's a bunch of players out there that feel like they have to stay in their lane and not go out of it for fear of losing playing time.
I think Connor Garland is one of those guys. He can play hockey. Like, he's lived a very outside of the box career already.
And he's a teacher's pet right now, so that works.
Right. And so, like, you know, Brock Besser is not as dynamic, so I probably don't put him into that category where he's got to, you know, I know we talked earlier, you know, maybe he's got to be a little bit of a go-getter, and in that time, it feels like we're in a different time right now where he has to be a finisher, right? Like, that's what he does best, and so maybe he doesn't fit the mold of someone that can freewheel as much. But yeah, you're right. Like, I think if you look up and down the lineup, Pius Suter's not going to be a big freewheeler. Teddy Bluger's not going to do it. Phil DiGiuseppe, all those kinds of guys. They're kind of nuts and bolts, straight up and down. But like, you still have, you know, like, you still have guys that should be able to do it. Jake DeBrusk should be able to do a little bit of, you know, freewheeling and make some plays and have some creativity, right? As much as he is a straight line guy that will, you know, should and will drive the net and be a finisher. It's just, you know, you have to do it for yourself to see and know that you can do it. And like, as a team, when everyone's kind of feeling the mojo, everyone feels like, okay, well, now I can get involved a little bit more. And I guess another point on the whole Tocchet thing, right? Like, if you are turning the puck over a little too much, or if you are getting bumped off it, or you're making plays that aren't, you know, the plays that you're supposed to make, I think you do have to watch out as a coach. Like, if you are on it every single time, like if Pettersson does it and you're on him every time, or this guy does it and you're on him every time, I think that's where sometimes, and I don't know if Tocchet does this or not, I'm just saying in general, there are times you have to let it breathe, because the player knows Players trying to work through something, and eventually these guys are so good and so skilled that it will work. It's just, I think, the nuance of understanding when I have to let him know and when I just have to let that breathe.
Ferraro once told us a great story about playing for Al Arbor and the drop pass, right? Where he makes a drop pass. Sure enough, Al Arbor is all over him on the bench. Don't want to see that again. Sure enough, Ray makes another drop pass. It's in the back of the net. They lose the game. Al just looks at him. And basically at that point, Ray knew, I don't need to ever try that drop pass again. With where this team is, because the crazy part is you've noted, Frank, so many things are going wrong, so many distractions, and yet they're in a playoff race. Is this team worth adding to right now? Or do you have to have resolution on Miller before you go and make a further move?
Oh, man, I would be very weary about just being a true buyer and adding to this group and doubling down and say we really believe in this group, and I'll tell you why. Thatcher Demko is admittedly, by him, not playing to his capability. And this almost just feels like it's a throwaway year for him. And it's unfortunate because of how well Quinn Hughes is playing, but with Pettersson, call it what it is. He's paid like a top 5 player in the NHL. He's not playing like a top 5 player in the NHL. We can all agree on that. With the Miller situation, it's just there's too much going wrong to say that, we're going to go out and spend some currency, get rid of a prospect, get rid of a pick, and try and add to this group because we believe in it. Because even if the GM comes in and says that, I can't buy that those guys truly believe that the way this season has gone. So I don't believe this is a year that, or actually am certain this is not a year that you try and double down and go for it per se, like in the traditional sense. But if you can make a hashtag, this is such a hockey term, hashtag hockey trade that helps your room, then maybe that's the little fire that you get. But you're still working under the pretenses that Demko is not right, not at the top of his game, and so you've lost that separating factor that you once had going into a playoff series.
Blake, I consider Frank the authority on this program in terms of youth and pop culture.
You do?
Parlance.
He's a dad now. It's eroding before our very eyes.
Did you catch the hashtag?
Yeah.
Do people still talk?
See?
Okay.
He's stuck in the teens.
If Frank can do it, then we can get away with it.
He's stuck in the teens.
Man, remember back in the day, you would tweet something out and put an obscure hashtag, and people would think it's so witty and
yes,
people don't do that anymore.
No, it's not, and people even speak it less now. The other thing is Elon says hashtags don't even do what they used to do.
No, you don't need to do them anymore.
You're working as a search feature.
It's unfortunate what's happened.
Twitter's so old that you just said back in the day when you used to tweet.
Yeah. Anyways,
wow.
Hashtag thank you. Appreciate the time. We'll catch up next Wednesday, Frank.
All right, boys. Have a good one.
If you are struggling with things like managing stress, anxiety, relationships, or divorce, reach out to the counselors at Advanced Counseling. Book your free initial consultation today at advancedcounseling.ca.
Sick Harrison Price from the Historic Wall Center, where you extend your game night with a staycation in downtown Vancouver. Book the Sick Harrison Price exclusive rate here at the Wall Center. Call 604-331-1000. Tell them we sent you. Some blackout dates apply based on availability. You can text this show, 778-402-9680. Email live at sickharrisonprice.com. All of it to the Great Clips inbox. Great Clips?
It's going to be great.
Mm-hmm. So the Seattle Mariners have as many Hall of Fame inductions this offseason as they have free agents signed. Ichiro to the Hall of Fame in his first season of eligibility, the first Japanese player ever to go into the Hall. He does so beside a couple of terrific left-handed pitchers, CC Sabathia and Billy Wagner in the closer category. And the Mariners are going to retire his number 51 later this season. Stands to reason. He got 99.7% of the vote. all but one vote,
Yeah.
which means Mariano Rivera, the iconic closer for the New York Yankees, is still the only player elected unanimously.
Do they make the votes public or no?
I believe they do.
yeah. So some guy's about to have his inbox filled up.
Right. Now, here's the thing, though. There is some context around this. Prior to, say, the last decade or so, the baseball writers drew a very firm line between first ballot inductees and inductees. And for some, it's ridiculous because nothing changes year to year with
Nope.
retired players to affect their
They don't get more homers.
case. Exactly. But for some voters, there is a significant distinction between a first ballot Hall of Famer and someone who isn't.
Sure.
Who has to bide
Billy Wagner.
their time. Billy Wagner in his 10th year of eligibility, his final year of eligibility,
Yeah.
who worked his way up from 10% of the vote in his first.
Crazy.
Now, that said, there has been a shift in the thinking on closers.
Yeah.
Much like the NFL, Pro Football Hall of Fame. Safeties and guards were underrepresented. There has been a push to get more of those candidates from those positions in. So you have seen in the last 10 years guys like Derek Jeter and Ken Griffey and others fall just shy of unanimous elections in their first year of eligibility. And I don't totally disagree, despite the obvious that cases don't change. Like, for me, let's use CC Sabathia. Terrific pitcher. Awesome pitcher. Great guy to watch, too. Terrific personal story, if you've ever seen the documentary about him, what he overcame. But in no world do I equate CC Sabathia and, say, Greg Maddux. One is just a different tier. One is just a different level, right? So I can understand why some guys still vote along those lines, but the paradigm shift is upon us. Most people now are voting, oh, gosh, yeah, put him in immediately if they meet a certain standard, and Ichiro damn near got there. Like, Cal Ripken had 17 guys not vote for him in his first year of eligibility.
Crazy.
Ken Griffey had a handful.
Yeah. Like, what are you waiting for?
No, I have trouble with Griffey. Like, how could, Griffey is easily amongst the top 5 players I've ever seen.
Is it just trying to make a name for yourself by being the naysayer? Like,
I sure hope it's not that. I sure hope it's this adherence to a culture and a tradition that, for the most part, is of years past.
So Carlos Beltran and Andrew Jones were the two just on the threshold.
Right. And next year, it is a particularly weak class of
Newcomers.
first-time eligibles. I saw Chipper Jones stumping for Andrew Jones last night. The guy won 10 gold gloves and had 1,300 RBI. I do think Andrew Jones and Carlos Beltran will get in next year.
Chase Utley doesn't feel like the guy.
Not quite. Hell of a ball player, no.
And then what?
I would have to look at the career numbers. Of course, he's a second baseman, right? So you would judge him on a different scale than, say, a slugger, a first baseman, an outfielder.
And then 3 guys with question marks: Alex Rodriguez, Manny Ramirez, and Andy Pettit.
Well, again,
Errors committee.
That is a whole different level of analysis with those who use performance enhancing drugs. Alex Rodriguez is easily amongst the 5 best baseball players I've ever seen in my life. Pettit, I would want to look at the career numbers, but needless to say, an incredible big game pitcher who had terrific team success. And Manny, a production machine, incredible hitter.
Without the question marks, all 3 of those guys are in.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I would agree with that. Ichiro getting in, though, brought about a whole new round of Ichiro stories from the back channels, including this brilliant one shared yesterday and confirmed by Alex Rodriguez on social media today.
Okay.
Spring training 2017. He's in the coach's room. He's looking at his cell phone and a text message. He gets a message from a number he doesn't recognize. The guy says, I got your number from Alex Rodriguez, and I want to come meet with you and study your stretching system. So one of the coaches says, what's the guy's name? Ichiro scroll to the end of the text. Some guy named Tom Brady. Who the fuck is Tom Brady? There was another story.
That does not surprise me. He doesn't seem like the kind of guy that was like an all-around sports fan.
There was another story by former Kansas City Royals first baseman Mike Sweeney, who had spent some of his career in the Japanese League. So he's with the Royals. Ichiro is new to Major League Baseball, and he gets a single, and he's on first base. And Sweeney thinks to himself, boy, whenever I got on base in the Japanese League, the first baseman used to always, well done. Even if you were on the road, there would be a video on the video board that would translate to Mike Sweeney, nice hitting, with a graphic.
For a road player getting...
Japanese culture, right? Very respectful,
yes.
right? And they're fans of the game writ large more than they are pure...
Tribals. Yeah.
Partisans,
Yeah.
right, exactly. So Ichiro's on first base, and Sweeney's like, gosh, I ought to say something to him. And he says, Ichiro, nice hitting. And Ichiro looks at him and responds, Mike Sweeney, nice ass. Look for more of the Ichiro stories between now and the induction in the summer, because I have a feeling all of them are coming out of the woodwork, and they are all going to be hilarious.
His grasp of the English language is better than we thought. His humor better than we thought. And I'm glad we're finally getting a glimpse of it. He also apparently used to eat the same chicken wings at 5:05 every single day.
Yes. Well, Blake, I covered a Seattle-Toronto series in his first year when he was brand new, and this was like May too, so it was like his first 6 weeks. And the traveling media corps of Japanese reporters and photojournalists was astounding. Like, it filled up half the press box at Skydome, then Skydome.
Mm-hmm.
And the procedure by which the Japanese went to talk to Ichiro was extraordinary in and of itself. They would huddle together either outside the clubhouse or in the press box before everyone went down, and they would assign one of them to go up to Ichiro, very respectfully, a lot of bowing involved, and then ask a series of questions, and then that reporter would relay the answers back to the entirety of the Japanese press corps. All of them there for one guy.
Pretty amazing.
The CFL is not changing its kickoff rules to mirror the new NFL rule. Thankfully for that, I know Coach Buono was very big on this during Grey Cup week, going around telling different guys, look, don't mess with our kicking rules. We have a better kicking game, a more exciting kicking game than the National Football League, and make sure if they try and say it's a safety issue, that it is actually contact that is creating those injuries and not some of the soft tissue injuries and all of that. Sure enough, Dave Naylor reporting from TSN, a consensus exists. The injury data from past seasons do not support a need to change the framework of kickoffs. Most of the injuries that are suffered are soft tissue in nature. There's about 7.5 kickoffs per game in the Canadian Football League, and most of them are returned. And of course, this has been one of the big distinguishing features of the 12-man Canadian game, an exciting play. I know the NFL was trying to get some returns, but not too many, and still have some excitement in that play. It completely fell flat, if you ask me. The kickoff rule, the new kickoff
The delay
rule.
run?
It's terrible.
Do you? You think it's terrible?
I think it's terrible. Yeah, I think it's terrible. I would prefer they
I'm not
just
as
go
strong
back
on
to I would look, easier for me to say. I'm not running down there taking the sort of hits, but just from a purely entertainment point of view, I would like the NFL to go back to the old rule. Or, and we didn't
The
see
old rule
this.
is no returns. The old rule is fair catch.
Well, just
and-
move it. Well, this is no catch, no returns either. And we didn't see this at all, really. So you have that zone now where why not coach up the kickers to try and hit that moon ball between the 20 and the goal line and force them? Of course, you can fair catch that too. So,
yeah.
but anyways, I do wonder whether the NFL is going to continue to tweak with it. The CFL is not screwing around.
The only rule that would work is that nobody on the kicking team can move until the ball's caught. Find a line where they start from.
But that's how it works now. That the coverage team cannot move until the ball is
it full
caught
caught?
or touches the ground. Anyways,
Move them back. Yeah.
The Canadian Football League free agency communication window was announced yesterday. It's February 2nd to February 9th. This is basically legalizing tampering, which was going on. So you have teams that can make a guy who stands to be a free agent an offer. Those are binding offers. And after the window closes, the player's existing team can review all the offers that came in on their player, decide if they want to match. And then there's a 2-hour period on free agency day, the 11th, where those offers can be accepted, one or the other. And then once that window expires, it's totally free. So there's still a little skullduggery involved there. You can still play it sort of cool and not show your cards, or you can go ahead and just offer guys. Of course, you have to be judicious. You wouldn't want to put 10 offers out there and have them all accepted. And next thing you know, you got a cap problem. It's designed around continuity. The CFL understands it's a better league when guys stay in given markets and create that relationship with the fans. And they also knew that tampering was going on. So this was a way to basically sanction it. Are you willing to take less on a JT Miller trade just to end the soap opera? Our Surrey Mitsubishi poll question from Tuesday. More than 2,000 votes. Blake, are you willing to take less on a Miller trade to end the soap opera, the people said?
No.
Correct. Percentage?
68.
69. Pretty good. Patrick, yes, because it isn't just about the assets coming back. It's ending the drama and hopefully getting Petey back on track. Mike, that's the mentality of other GMs will push to absolutely fleece us in a trade. Have to stand firm. P-Bats, they should wait until the offseason, suck it up for the year, can't afford to give them away. Colton, you're not going to win a trade, period, but you make the move and you use those assets in secondary and tertiary moves, much like Philip Roenick. Adam, absolutely, yes. A pick and a player or whatever, you guys should look at what Tampa and the Rangers took for him when they made their trades. He's at a different level now, but it would be interesting. And then our boy Yerke. The cap space and the piece, if it follows, are both assets. I think the fans also have to be realistic over what a 31-year-old on a hefty contract with baggage is actually worth. So taking less, quote unquote, may not actually be that far from fair value, quote unquote.
Now, you could create cap space, sign somebody you like in the offseason, but of course, you don't get deals on the open market, right? So
and it's a limited number of guys out there. Like you could not. I mean, there may not be more than one or two first or second line centers available on free agency.
Yeah,
if that. Those tend not to be profiles that come on the open market. There's a lot of third line centers who can sort of masquerade as a number two. But there's not a lot of bona fide first or second line centers on the free agent market. Typically.
John Tavares, but for how many more years?
Well, but think of how long ago that was, Blake. Like you're citing example.
No, I'm saying John Tavares this summer.
Oh, right. Okay. Errors and omissions, we have 3. Yerke pointed out John Shannon Aird said the Canucks beat Nashville in 5. It was in 6. You asked about Sidney Crosby's suspension history. There is none.
No,
he has never been suspended
really.
in the National Hockey League.
I'm surprised by that.
And then our friend Jonas Siegel of the YYZ Sports Media blog and podcast weighed in. He was listening to the show, and he said, Matt, I was listening to the discussion you guys were having about Connor McDavid missing these 3 home games to a suspension and not a dollar loss. He goes, that's not really true. Like, hockey is so regional and so localized now that no Connor McDavid probably means they're gonna, fewer eyeballs, less money spent on concessions, all of those things. And we should have known that because John Shannon has schooled us. It is very hard for the NHL to be a national property. Most of the revenue is driven in market by home games, and Connor missing 3 of them. I don't think it's going to put Rexall out of business or anything like that. But there will be somewhat of a revenue bleed.
I think there will still be a lot of attention on tomorrow's game, but I just don't think it'll be the same that it was. Adam would like to point out that I said Skydome on Monday when it's called Rogers Center. Adam, that's a editorial choice by myself. It's not an error per se.
Everybody knows Skydome. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Appreciate you spending some time connecting with us. Please do subscribe to all our assorted channels, YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. Follow on social. That's X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and Blue Sky. Live, many of those platforms, noon Pacific time weekdays. And, of course, support the community sponsors you hear us talking about. Keep it local.